Uh, Part of this conversation, I mean, a conversation we started a long time ago on the phone. I met John when I was probably 17.
Right.
I was very young. I just had arrived in the United States, 17 or 18, around there. It happened in 1957. I mean, 3 years from now it's going to be half a century that it has happened. It's just completely unbelievable. And we went to visit Dr. Rosenbaum. I mean, he took me several times there. I'm talking 1958, more or less. And see, I recapitulate these things because at the time I knew that I just arrived. It was in late 1957 when I met him, because I arrived in the United States in 1957. And then I met John probably in September, October of 1957.
So it was right. How did your paths originally cross?
We met, there was some kind of a party. I don't remember very well. There's a party that I went, and he was there. And for example, we would meet in here, and then you meet somebody, and we start talking. And he had known one of my uncles, one of my father's cousin, Pedro Silvetti, who was ambassador to the United Nations. But at that time, I was not interested, I was very scatterbrained because I was by myself for the first time away from the family. I was completely free because, from my family. So my mind was more on, like every very young person at the time, it was more in music and going out and going dancing and doing this and doing that. So I was not in awe at the time of any, or very impressed by anything, except just dressing up in the evening and going out and going dancing or whatever, So I met all of these people, and I cannot say much, sincerely, about what was said, or I cannot be very clear or very definite about these things because my mind was on other things.
Okay. Could I just say, you came from you grew up in where, Montevideo or?
La Paz.
La Paz.
Yes. And
can you tell me when you were born?
In 1937.
Right.
And in 1939, and when in 1957 I arrived. Anyway, and my family was involved in politics. My father was not a political man, so he really did nothing. I mean, he had some kind of an import thing, but it was more something like just to show that he was doing something. But actually, he was a man that he did not work very much. But my uncles, his cousins, all of those, they were attorneys, they were ministros, they were all of that kind of thing. So I met John, and he liked me very much, and he said, "Well, I've known your Pedro and so on, and at that time I had a very bubbly personality. I don't know whether I still have it or not these days." And he liked that kind of attitude, and he asked me to see a play sometime, and then he asked me to go to the play with him, and I went, and after the play we would talk about many things, and we used to go to the movies. I mean, not all the time, but it was a good friendship, and that's also, he used to invite me when he moved to Riverdale from village. He used to come up from his office in the 72nd Street and stop over the car, and I used to wait for him at a specific time, like about 6 o'clock after class, or after 6:30, at the corner of Amsterdam and 115th Street. And then he was arriving in the car, and I jumped the guy, because we used to go out to his place in Riverdale. And I used to spend sometimes the weekend there.
So, you used to spend the weekends occasionally up in Riverdale?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Why did he move to Riverdale?
I don't know. There's a time that when I met him, he lived in the village on King Street. 50 King Street was the address. And I think it was on the 8th floor, apartment 8B.
A modern block?
It was, yes. It was.
Yeah.
It is a street. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yeah. You've been doing your work. It is a street that has this kind of federal house, what's called federal style houses, and then there's a modern block. Yes. And but he liked it. He liked the area. He liked that it had some Italian restaurants around there. That is more casual than uptown. He also, Winston Auden, lived or had an apartment on St. Mark's Place, which is not very far from there. St. Mark's Place. And he had other friends there that, I'm afraid I do not recall, but he used to visit with other people. In the neighborhood. Sometimes the talk. Sometimes they used to come and see him, and the talk was more that I could understand. Apparently they were friends for a while, and they were talking about philosophy or whatever. Very often they used to talk about what had happened during the Holocaust, which is one of his obsessions. He was profoundly touched by all the suffering, and he used to explain to me. He had these horrifying photographs, and he mentioned this that he has seen very terrible things. And be shocked how people could be so horrible with other people, and so that those things, of course. Now that I look back, it was 1957, which is only 12 years after the end of the war. Now, of course, we are completely detached because it's half a century more. It is all of that generation that went through those experiences now is gone. And I must repeat what I said before. I had not experienced any of that, so sometimes it appeared to me there was something like an accident that has happened to somebody else. And when you are in your teens, you think you are eternal. You don't have a pain, because I don't ever remember having an aspirin or anything of the kind. And you don't take things very seriously, you see. And he didn't take that point, as far as I can remember, from a specific point. In other words, he did not take sides, saying, it is the Jews who have been suffering, but he took it more in the sense of humanity suffering. That I remember, because he explained to me that he converted to Catholicism because of some experiences he have had.
What sort of experiences?
I cannot recall that.
I don't know. I know he converted in 1944.
Yes.
When he was, and through someone in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
There was an Institute for Medieval Studies at Toronto with a Catholic priest there, and he converted.
Mm-hmm. I think that it had to do something with a charity. Sean, you know Chuber?
Right.
With the charity he saw of the Catholics, probably, the attitude. what was really behind it all. I seem to recall that he had some. We were talking about the Bible, and if I could remember him correctly, because I don't want to misquote him in any way. So some of the things that I'm saying, you have to take them with a grain of salt. Of course. He thought, I think, that one of the mysterious things of the Bible, he expressed to me that if God at the very beginning, for example, had done the Garden of Eden and planted, for people to live there, for men to live here happily, why would he put something almost like a provocation right in the center of it? Why wasn't just an outright gift, like saying, enjoy, you owe me nothing, enjoy. But there was this clause, God in his wisdom would put a clause to something. And a clause is definitely a temptation, It's like bringing children and say, enjoy this wonderful house.
Yeah.
In this room there's a basket full of chocolates. You can enjoy everything, but do not touch the chocolates. You see, and we talked about it, and it was, I think he said it was one of the things that he had to think about. And he told me, once again, this is a long time ago, that the scholarship of thinkers that study the Bible is to find out why are thoughts that go like this, that seem to be contradictory. He said something about the notion, the original sin, for example, and why are we born already with a baby already with sin in him? He had his doubts about this. I wish I'd taken notes.
So was he concerned that how had God allowed the Holocaust to happen? That there was such evil in the world?
No. He was trying to understand it. What I'm trying to say is that he told me that he told me that most of the studies of the Bible is trying to find out, are trying to understand why certain things happen the way they happened. Why would God do certain things? Why would sometimes may take sides to one side and another? It was not meant as a criticism. It was something that had happened that he tried to understand along with others. Why was it? Why would these things happen? And this was tied also to his feeling of the immense suffering of the Jewish people have gone through that. I repeat, it was an obsession, because very often he used to show me these things and tell me things.
Tell me, these photographs, were they photographs which he had taken or which he had collected?
And I don't know that he had taken them, because some of them were very gruesome. Some of them I think that I've seen already published in other books. They are the standard concentration camp shots of people sleeping in this kind of tiers, like shells, looking very thin, skeleton-like, and the great pits where these bodies were thrown in. This kind of thing. He had many, and I I didn't want to see them, because they are too shocking. Also, from what you are telling me now, from all the things he did, in a way he was sort of a modest man, because although he knew me well and he liked me very much, as I say, because probably I had a very bright personality, and this and that, and let's go this and let's do that, and let's go for a ride, and look at the paper, something is happening, why don't we try this, and so on. He did not tell me many things. I was trying to say something. Yeah. Oh yes. He did not tell me many things about his life that you are telling me now. I mean, he was not a man who would tell me, listen, I'm this person, I've done this and this and this and that. Never. I must recognize now, looking back, that he was in fact a very modest man, that he was not saying, I've done this. No. He would tell me, I've been trying to help and I've been trying to do this at the most. He would not drop a name. His mail would arrive, and he would see his letters, and I remember, as I mentioned, Tarquin. Oh no, this is the son of Laurence Olivier, written to him, and he had all of this mail from names that later on I've seen, that I heard. He had friends that he used to see from the literary circle. I think Iris Murdoch was one of his friends, the writer. He had known the Sitwells too, I think, at the time. One of them arrived in New York, and of course he would ask me. He would ask me sometimes to go to these places, but of course I used to say, can I skip it? And I think that Edith Sitwell, I remember mentioning the Sitwells. I cannot remember very well, but I think that she came. But I remember the name later on because he gave me a volume written by Edith Sitwell called The English Eccentrics. And he thought it was a hilarious book and said, this is quintessentially English. Read this. I mean, have you read the book?
No, I haven't.
No?
But I think he understood Englishness, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As I told you before, when I met him, incidentally, he also just arrived in the United States in 1957, I think he did. I mean, we met very, very soon after he arrived, and I had arrived. Probably that's one of the reasons why we became friends. He didn't quite have like a fatherly attitude towards me. It was like, and also I cannot say that he was like a professor, like somebody who's going to teach someone. It is like somebody who has somebody to enjoy things. I had this, even at that time, I had this appreciation for I guess that I had a sense of humor or things, and I had this appreciation to see things. I mean, there are minds that are really very narrow, and there are minds that are very open. Now I'm not trying to say that I was the perfect person at all, but what I mean is that I was very open. That I like to go and to a museum with him. I went to the Metropolitan many times, and he would tell me, look, there are so many works of art, but let's see just one, maybe two, and let's talk about it. We're not come here to see what's here, but just to see just one thing.
Okay. Do you remember what any of any ones that were very meaningful to him?
There was one that he liked very much. I'm trying to remember. There's a Vermeer painting in the Metropolitan. It's a lady that's wearing this white headdress, and it's a small painting, and it's a very simple painting. I think that she's holding a picture or something, and that painting expressed so much to him. Said, "Look, it's a whole life in there." Once again, I'm trying to recollect, and I may be adding a bit to it. I'm trying not to romanticize it after all this time, but the essence was, look at the headdress. This beautiful cloth has been starched. The folds of the starch are there. It's just not a cloth that's put in there, but it shows you the whole civilization. You know, it's somebody that's used. It's not it's not silk. It's not embroidery. She's not ornamenting herself. It's just a starch thing. Look at the blue of look at the light how it is coming. Look at the expression. Look at the piece of that. The expression of the face, and that used to contrast it, of course, with the Baroque paintings. They're all movement and action, and this was the very quiet north, you know, where there's more, probably because of the long winters. There's time for relaxation, more. Well, actually, you know, Rubens and Rembrandt, they're also the neighbors from Vermeer, but it is another attitude. Now, all of these things were said, and that's why I have this enormous debt to him. They were not said in a didactic way, not on a teaching. It was just like a conversation, like we would be sitting outside, and then some passers-by go, and they would say, "Look at that funny lady, how she's dressed." Or, I mean, you know, we were just making comments on some without you trying to teach me or show off knowledge, but it's just they're like passing by comments, and that was his system. I think that, you know, these things I thought later. At that time, they were just experiences, but later on, as I understood and time went by, and then I met other people, I realized the enormous difference there was between this personality and the others. A seemingly quiet person that's just making remarks as if they are his very own point of view, but in fact meaning worlds. You know, it was the essence of years of thought condensed and very lightly spoken, not in a pompous way, not in somebody who's trying to teach anyone, but sort of saying very wise things, profound things in a very easy, very light way, not that. We went to the Museum of Modern Art, and there's one of his favorite painters was, of course, Van Gogh. At the time, he was a very passionate painter. I mean, there are books, there are many things. There are waves of you know, there are times where a certain painter, because of an exhibition, because something happened in his family, whatever, they're vogues, and sometimes this vogue lasts months or a couple of years. Everything seems to be centered around the thing, and then sort of fades away. But I remember we went to MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and there's this one of those famous paintings, the Starry Night. And we were talking for a long time about that, and he mentioned how in this seemingly quiet village, the sky means that there's whole worlds happening in the meantime. The whole creation, the whole cosmos is moving. said, this man recognized that a starry night doesn't really mean that everything is night and quiet, that the universe is still going and turning, producing this whirlwind, even in the great cosmos, just in the thinnest creature that's on the floor, in the smallest creature that lives on the floor. The ants are busy. There's all of this thing happens. He liked that very much. I think there's another painting there. The famous the field of wheat with the ravens around that. Also, at the time they were published the letters of Van Gogh to his brother Theo, and he had these 2 volumes, 2 thick volumes, and he bought a recorder, and he loved to read these letters. He said this man who was taken for a madman, in fact, he had a mind that few could understand. It's almost like a cliche to say, somebody that's very wise is probably mad, because ordinary people cannot understand things that happen in certain minds. And the observations that Vincent wrote to his brother, he thought they were absolutely wonderful. And in these books, that I hope they are still in the Einstein Library, I don't know.
A lot are. There's even one with your signature.
Yes? Okay, you found them?
I'll show you on the, if we have time then, I'll show you on my laptop.
And those 2 volumes were very precious to him, because he read them, and sometimes I used to visit him, and I'll be watching TV, or I'll writing my own homework, and he'll be really concentrated and make marks on the books, and write and he'll put pieces of paper, and he was very taken by this. And then he got this recorder, and he liked the sound of the words. He told me that it was a very good translation, by the way. What was the translation?
Of the Van Gogh?
Yes,
letter.
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
He said that the language fortunately expressed very well, and he used to try to imbue himself, try to understand a man by reading this. And sometimes I would hear him, he'll be in the other room, and there I'll be in one room, and I'll come in, and then he'll look at me like this, because he was recording his own voice. That voice, he had a very special voice that I find it very touching. Have you ever heard his voice?
There's a recording of him reading T.S. Eliot, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And there's a recording, that was the first thing I ever heard. I visited Tony Schwartz, who he is a sound recording specialist, and he had several tapes, which some were made by John Thompson. There was also one of recordings which John Thompson had made in Mississippi on one of the Freedom Marches, and also of a human disasters conference in New York about the Holocaust, speaking very, very eloquently, very movingly. That meeting was recorded. And then there's a final recording of the memorial meeting at Albert Einstein. And he obviously, Tony Schwartz, he knew Tony Schwartz very, very well. It would have been on the west side, about 55th Street, something like that.
And I can remember him.
Yeah, in fact, I could show you a photograph. I've got a photograph on my laptop.
I see.
Show it to you. But yes, I've heard his voice. It's very distinctive.
Very, very, very distinctive.
Did you, from his voice, one wouldn't pick up that he'd been born in Mexico, and
No.
his did he talk about his schooling at all, or his family?
Not really. He, as I can remember, he spent part of his childhood in Mexico. His father was an engineer, and I think that he had installed the power or something in Mexico. His house was in a street called Pirineos on the Lomas of Chapultepec, on the Lomas. When the mother died, I think the father died before, and then when his mother died, they sold the house. And I think that they sold the house. And when they were going to sell the house, I remember that I was surprised. It was sold the house, wasn't it? Where the parents lived.
Do you know? I'm not sure.
Pirineos. It was.
Is this in Puebla Pur?
Mm-hmm.
Not in Puebla. It's in Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Right.
The Lomas de Chapultepec. Chapultepec was Lomas means hills. Chapultepec was the region where the palace of Maximilian was, and on the hills, and probably had hills, houses on the hills. And I remember seeing some photographs that he had with his mother and father in the house. About the gate of the house, I think it had white walls, and then from the outside it had white walls, and then had a gate, and the house was inside, and there was a garden in front.
They were
Yes.
kind people, his parents.
Hmm?
Well, I mean, they were kindly people because they outlived him, didn't they?
Probably. No.
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 They didn't. They died. Do you know? I don't know when they died.
No. His father had died, or maybe when I said, because I remember that the house was sold, but now that you mention, I'm maybe confused, and it may be Frank or Margaret who told me that the house was sold, but I think that it was sold after the mother died. He had a photograph of his father and mother, and he looked very much like the mother. You know, that kind of face. He looked a bit like Margaret.
Okay. Did he talk about Scotland at all? Because the mother was originally.
He used to make fun of Scottish people.
I see. Really?
He didn't say much.
Okay.
Not much. Not fun in a derogatory way at all. You know, and in you know, saying you know, something. I mean, he's Scottish or you know, whatever. No.
Did he talk about Palo Alto and Stanford University, California?
He told me that he'd gone to school there.
Okay.
And but not much.
Had he been to school at all in Europe?
That I don't know.
He didn't say anything, so it was really
No.
Palo Alto.
No.
Okay.
He didn't talk very much about himself at all. You know, I'm now discovering things through you. We used to when he arrived in New York, I had a feeling that he wanted to start something anew. Even I have no idea when he was born. I have no idea his age, how old or what he wanted. I have no idea. I never mentioned about those things. But I remember that he waited for his books. He arrived and said, you know, I decided to come to the United States because New York, whatever, and I have this place, and all I'm waiting are for my books. And he waited for months for his books, and then finally these boxes arrived. They said they are here. They finally arrived, my books. I mean, he was overjoyed by it, and We used to talk about things that were happening mostly.
Okay.
At the time, he used to like to go to the theater quite a lot. I mean, he used to invite me all the time.
Right.
He used to tell me sometimes, I enjoy going to the theater with you because when I go with other people, we talk about nonsense. We get very social, and we are not talking about the reason why we went to see the play. We go out into the intermission, and then we're talking about each other, about what happened to their families, what happened to this, and the play doesn't seem to be the most important thing. We would see. I remember that the Lanz, Alfred Land and Linfontan, came to at the time. I'm talking maybe 1958. This is really a long time ago. And the play was The Visit. It's a very famous play. Besuch der alte Dame. In Germany, it is The Visit of the Old Lady. And it is the story of a lady who is very rich, who goes back home, where she was born and raised. And where also the handsome young man had told her that he was going to marry her, and had sex with her, and then abandoned her. And she tried to get help, and she was ran out of town. She went to another place, and she married this millionaire, and then she came back a very wealthy woman much later. And then she says, she comes to the town and says, this is the town where I was raised, and so on, and I'll give each one this amount, everybody in town this amount of money, on one condition: I want the life of this man. And so it's a play that actually shows, that raises many questions, like why people were so unkind to her when she was a young girl, and why would she come back and wish the death of that person, whether vengeance is really something to do, because it was vengeance, also with corruption, how her offer of giving all this money to everybody in town, that she's corrupting everybody, all of those things. And after the play, we used to go to a little coffee shop, or else just even walk for a long time. We used to walk to Central Park or whatever, talking about the play. And I mean, he used to say, often he had answers, his interpretation, and also he said, all these questions. He wanted to understand life. As I said, when he said those things about the Bible, that why these things happen, I don't think that he found many answers. Like, I don't think that none of us has found really the answers. But he was trying to cope. He was trying to live according to what was happening in the kindest way to human beings.
Yeah.
One of the crux of his thinking was to not offend anyone, because you never know what was behind that life before. It's very important. That if somebody attacks you, do not. As a matter of, it is one of the teachings of Christ. That if offer the other cheek, that's in a very simple way, simply said. But what is behind, I'm trying to recall now, is that what is behind is that you do not know what made that person strike you or hurt you. What was the mechanism behind it to forgive? to forgive was one of his main points of thinking.
Did you go to church together?
Very often.
Very often.
We used to go.
Wow.
He used to call me, and we used to go. He always Sunday, no matter what, he went to church. He said, "There's one thing that is sure in my life, that at the time of Mass, at exact time, a priest will come and will say Mass." I mean, this I remember precisely. This is an absolute quote, sure. He said, what I like about it is that it is not that he's late or whatever. At that time precise, the priest comes out and he is with us.
Can I ask where you went? Where John went to church? When you was first of all in Greenwich Village and then later on in Riverdale?
He used to go, sometimes he used to go to this Italian church called Our Lady of Pompeii, I think.
Can you remember what street that was?
Now, often I did not go with him, because I used to go out at night, and sometimes the next morning on Sunday, I go to church, all right, I'll see you later, whatever. It is called, there are two churches. One was Our Lady of Pompeii, and the other one was Il Carmine. It was an Italian neighborhood there at the time. Now things have changed everywhere. And Our Lady of Pompeii was a rather large church, kind of and the image is a virgin that is handed like a rosary. There are two donors or supplicants, whatever, and that's one. And that was the Carmine. One of them was in Houston Street, and that one was very near there.
What about in Riverdale?
Also, he used to like the church on 66th Street and Lexington Avenue. We used to go there frequently. It was out of the way, but we used to go there. It's called San Vincent Ferrer. As a matter of fact, we went on some Thanksgiving. On one Thanksgiving, we went with Margaret there. Margaret used to live on 47th Street and First Avenue. On occasion, we'll be walking down Fifth Avenue and would walk in front of St. Patrick and said, "Let's go inside for a moment." And he was a very devout man.
Yes.
I'm sorry that I didn't bring his. I think I might even send it to you. His missal. Yes, I remember. It's really the only thing that I have that belongs really to him. And he, as I told you, that he wrote that note in there that said, "This, which is my life, is for you," And his name was written, John Thompson, at the top as he opened this.
Yeah.
And then he glued another card on top so you can see the beginning of the J and the O-N at the end. I mean, he didn't quite cover it. And I had a note inside, but I don't know what happened to the note. It's somebody, then some friend of mine or whatever.
Do you know about him going on retreat to visit?
Yes.
Right.
We went twice. He said I needed to go. I needed. Now I'm talking without any specific order. I'm just dropping.
But you went on retreat. Did you go together?
He. See, I was not with him all the time because he also had other friends. They're not professors and scientists and literary people. I was sort of an easy person to be with, let me put it that way. That everybody wants to have somebody, wants to have a companion to enjoy things. And since he was, I gather now, since he was a very famous man, or a very learned man, he apparently found it difficult to just call people and say, listen, do you want to go out to the movies today? Most people say, well, not really. It's one of the prizes of fame. They feel that they have to pull themselves really together just to go to the movies. And I didn't mind anything at all. I mean, he'd call me, what are you doing? I said, are you studying? And customer said, I'll take the excuse not to study. And then go here. And of course, when he asked me to go to the theater or to a music concert or whatever, I was just too glad to go, because it was going out, seeing a play, going to Broadway, going to the theater. That's why he liked me, because I was a free person, and I also liked him because I was atypical in the sense that although I was very young and wanted to do everything, but I was not into rock. Let me put it that way. Which at the time it was Elvis Presley and all of that, and I didn't particularly care for that culture at all. Okay. I was more. I like classicism and all of these things. At home where I grew up, it was a large house, and it's a very comfortable house, and it was. In a sense, it was a formal house. For lunch every day, the table was set when my parents, but it was set as if guests were really arriving imminently. It was a very nice household, and therefore the familiarity of Americans even at that time, and also the good times before Kennedy was murdered. I mean, shocked me a bit. Even at that age, I was not impressed by the American how can I say, quick familiarity and the language that had many four-letter words very casually dropped at home. I've never heard, and even there in South America. As students, it was not the thing to do to use four-letter words of any kind. It just was done. So I like his company very much. I repeat, I knew that I was talking to somebody of a very large education, but I was not fully aware. I mean, I thought it was a very fascinating person, but I didn't quite see the weight of things.
Do you remember? I'll just bring you back to that he went on retreat to monasteries.
He needed to get away. Right. He said, I have to go and sort of collect my thoughts. I needed peace and quiet, and we went twice to a place near Sherbrooke in Canada called Saint-Benoît-du-Lac. And there he had his room, and we were very quiet. He used to walk quite a lot. He used to get up earlier than what I did, and he used to go on walks and then come back and said, John, where you are? Yes, I went here and went there, and so on. And he used to spend hours in the church. This is just long time. Also, he used to bring books there, and there's a big refectory, the room for meals, and the how do you call the head? I can't remember the name right now. He used to sit on a table in the front, and then be 2 or 3 rows like this, long tables. And the entire lunch was 1 slice of toast with a very thin layer of cheese and something sprinkled on it. They've been put under the oven, and that was it. Plus, I think some water or something. It was very, very extremely frugal. And maybe a fig. So I said, John, what is this? And they used to say, well, that it is, and that's the vow. Poverty and so on. And the man you see at the very head is absolute power. If you tell somebody that he, at this moment, is to starve himself to death, the man will do it. Of course, it will never happen, but he has absolute power on his flock. But he's also responsible for his flock. He makes sure that everything goes well. We used to walk in the fields and see the monks working, collecting hay or whatever they were doing. Sometimes you spend like about a week, 2 weeks there.
Was there anybody there who was with whom he had a spiritual affinity with? Or was it
I think
because
that
it was a very beautiful place?
I think that he spoke with the head. Now with the abbot. I think there's a name. Is it the abbot?
The abbot, yeah.
Anyway, the abbot. Yes. I think that's the right name, which I've forgotten now. But I'm going to tell you something interesting. It had this dormitory, and then at a wing had a big open courtyard in front. It also looked almost like a feudal castle, and the church with the clock, with the bell tower. And it had another wing here, and the rolling hills. It's a very beautiful place. I mean, we're seeing it, and he was very welcome. He was very welcome, Monsieur Dr. Thompson and so on. And after John died, I went back, maybe 4 years later, maybe 68, 69, and the place had changed completely. I recognized one of the persons that used to arrange things, because some of the monks were really quiet, never spoke at all, but there are some, very few, 2 or 3, that talk with everybody, with the organizers. And there was one that I'm seeing him right now, and when I returned, I came back and I said, hello, do you remember me? And said, yes, I think I do. And said, do you remember John Thompson? Oh, yes, he calls very often. I mean, he's been dead for years. And the operation, there are like these buses arriving. It appeared as if the philosophy of the place had changed. Suddenly it had become like a tourist kind of a place. Have you gone there?
I've seen the website, and I tried to contact the monastery to ask them, because I was in Montreal a few weeks ago, and I thought, I could go there. But I didn't have any reply from the monastery.
It was strange. It seemed that the whole thing started to be commercialized, and there are these buses, and there's many people arriving, busing, and so on. And I planned to stay, but I did not. I went back into the car, and I remember that I was disappointed at that experience. Now, it's possible that I may have arrived at the wrong time or at the wrong moment, but that serenity originally found when I went there with John, soon to be gone. I remember that he told me that every so many hours the bell rang, and he knew all the prayers. This is that time, this is that time, this is the Vespers, that is the whatever, and he knew the hours and told me, even in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock, they get up, they go and they pray, and then go back because it's not to hear this calls and sound, and they do it all their lives like this. I may say that another thing that I think that I mentioned to you on the phone about things that happen, it is that he told me about etiquette, about why etiquette exists. That there's the notion that etiquette is something very binding, that the rules of etiquette, you say, no etiquette, whatever, and etiquette in fact is to make things predictable, because etiquette, if you go to a place and you follow the rules, you know that at a given time you sit down, let's say in the dinner, you sit down at the table, and everybody knows what to expect, what the next step is. Even when you have to try, even all of those things together. Things are predictable. What to do and when. So it is not a binding thing. On the contrary, it's a liberating thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem at all.
Too eager to know. That's my problem. I apologize.
Not at all. Which is a very good point, you see.
Okay. And that's interesting.
We went twice, and once went there, and he had an Austin Healey. He loved the little car. It's a very sports car, and he had white hair, and I had no idea how he was at the time. I really do not have any exact idea. And he has this really very sports, very youthful car. And he had white hair, but he had a very sprightly walk. He didn't walk like an old man at all. He had all of this health about him.
So how often did you see Auden? Was it frequently, or was it a rare but special?
Although I saw John with a certain regularity, but I was not there all the time. In other words, I did not live with him. When I met him, I had my own place near Columbia University. I rented rooms. Then I moved to the village, and I had a little apartment on McDougall Street. Then it would appear that we were living together, but we were not living together. Then I moved to the dorms at Columbia University, and then I found a room because they were too noisy, the dorms, and at all times friends of mine would come to my room and knock at the door and want to talk, just too much. I found a room of an Irish lady who rented rooms, a widower, and they're all around the universities, those places, ladies that rent rooms. And it was while I was in that room that I learned he died. So I don't this in 1965, but it was in 1966. What was the year?
He died in 65, in the summer of 65.
65. And so, although I saw these people, but I cannot give you a sort of an agenda, because it was, I would be there and they would come and visit. Or else he would call me and say, such and such is come and join us. We may go out for dinner, join us, come. And I stay there sometimes, because we used to talk, let's say, if we went to the theater, then in the living room there was this folding bed where I stayed. In Riverdale it was a larger apartment. There's a guest room there. And so I cannot tell you with exact regularity, because I was not there all the time.
So you would have met Auden how many times?
2 or 3 times.
2 or 3.
I remember there's a party. I never went to Sir Mark's place. He asked me twice, and there's a party at Wiston. Come along. I said, I'd rather not. I didn't know. You know, now that I look back, I was foolish. Stephen Spender. He used to take me to these talks, thrilling. I think that T.S. Eliot also arrived at the time, and he went. T.S. Eliot arrived. Isaac Dinesen also. I cannot remember exactly. I think that she arrived. I'm talking 1958, 1959.
So John would have met T.S. Eliot then?
I haven't met him. Right. No, he went to meet him. He had letters of. Also, he was involved with the arts because he had some letters from Wilhelm Kempff, who's a very famous piano man, made many recordings. He was supposed to be one of the Beethoven great interpreters. He had the entire cycle of sonatas. Wilhelm Kempff was very famous. At the time, he was a man probably in his already 60s, 70s. You know, it was quite a wonderful friendship. I wish that at the time I was a little bit older and a little bit wiser. You know.
Life is as it happens, and it's not as a historian, it's not my job to change or to judge or anything. It's to gain the insight into what motivated people. So in this case, it's what John Thompson's motives were, and it's very helpful to me that you're talking about his ideas and the way whom he knew and how he responded to the world, because that's really what I would like to portray in a very rounded way, so that as a human being, you see,
yes.
very, very kind of you to recreate. I mean, my job is just to recreate the past from that point of view, just like a camera or something.
Do you think that he was a man that had a definite philosophy, or was he a man that was still searching for answers?
That's an interesting question. I think one thing which I think is clear is that he moved away from the idea that science, that rational science could explain the world, to the idea that really it was through love and in the end it was from God's love, was going to be the basis of our existence, and it is through in a way through the that you care for people. That's the important thing, is caring. And of course, as a physician, as a psychiatrist,
I think so.
And he wanted to. The interesting thing is, as a historian of medicine, is to replace the rational science as the basis of medicine to the idea of care, or through, but ultimately coming from I would say, in John Thompson's case, a very deep belief in God. That's certainly, I think, he uses his. What would interest me is animals. Did you find that he had any interesting ideas about animals? No?
That is very strange. No,
not at all.
I don't recall at all.
About animals.
No.
I asked because he had very.
Wait a moment. He mentioned that in France he had a dog, a German Shepherd, who they loved, and someone had poisoned. Yes, that I recall exactly. He had a German Shepherd, and he loved his dog. And he said somebody poisoned it. That I remember. And in New York, he never had any at all. But I remember that in France he had one.
This would have been at Ovive.
Probably Ovive.
Did he talk about Ovive?
Yes. Not in a way that I can recollect coherently. He mentioned work that he'd done there. He said, when I was in Lviv, we did this, we did that. I think he had Albert Camus there, or something. I'm trying to remember. He was also... He had something that I don't think that he agreed with Sartre, which is another one of the names. But I must confess that I'm saying this very superficially. He did not speak in an approving manner of Sartre. He thought he missed the point somehow. That his philosophy was going to be ephemeral. There was just that it related to the time, and that it was not going. That it was going to be something like something remembered for the period and just pertinent to the period. He said, in these times that after all this catastrophe, because I repeat, the end of the war, it was only 12 years before I met him. It was an extremely fresh in everybody's mind, but he did not believe.
Did you drive to Saint-Benoît-du-Lac? Did you go by car when you went to Saint-Benoît-du-Lac?
By car.
You went by car.
Yeah.
Did you go? There was this place in Vermont, Spring Lake Range.
No.
You didn't, because it would have been on the way.
He mentioned Vermont. I think he mentioned Vermont, but I was never there.
You were never there. It would have been on.
I never went there, and because later on, when I first met him, we were close in the sense that we saw each other very, very frequently. And then architecture, which is a devouring kind of study, because it is not something that if you have to read a book, you read the book, and then at the end of the book you close the book. In architecture, you always feel that you can improve, and it is one of the few buildings in campus that is open 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Because I cannot tell you those called charrettes, for example. That's the name that the professor would say. Well, it's Friday. I have something for you for the weekend. Design a monument in a park for this, and presentation is Monday at 10. So you spend the whole weekend without sleeping.
Okay.
And it's a very absorbing, because you design and then you think that you can improve, and then you change. What I'm trying to say, it is not something that like one thing that you do your homework and then you end of homework, you did it, you close it, and that's it. You can always develop more. So I saw him much less. I got very much involved with my studies.
Did he ask you to go to on holiday with him to the Virgin Islands?
No.
No.
He, as a matter of fact, I didn't know that he went there
at all.
No.
They had no contact with him before, and he didn't.
He I was very, as I say, I got very busy with school, and he would call me, and then I just was not available. You know, that I this, you know, very very busy.
Do you think he was lonely towards the end of his life?
I must say that John has a streak of sadness to him, always. There was a certain streak of sadness. I think there was something about himself that he wanted to change. No, not that. Not at all. What I'm just saying is that I think there was something about him that he wished that he understood. Not change, understood. Yes, there's a definite streak of sadness, even in very happy moments when I mean we'll be enjoying something. We would see like a flamenco show or something like this that I'm very happy, and then there were jokes and on so he would laugh, but something seemed to be hurting him.
How did you? Yeah.
I think it was this. I think that this shock during the war might have had this thing that he something happened in his life that I'm not sure exactly what it was that made him suffer profoundly. Something happened. I'm not sure.
He never talked about it. I mean, he had been married at one stage. Never talked about.
He told me that. Yes, he told me that he'd been married once, and that it was a very hellish experience. He told me that the woman he had married suddenly turned out to be a very difficult person. Said, and I couldn't just wait to get out of there. I was all hopes and everything. But the moment we were married, things changed, and also really it was a terrible experience.
Did you say anything about who she was or how? No.
And I didn't ask either. I didn't ask him any questions. I guess that it was something that I had from home. That unless he would volunteer. Yeah. There are very few things. It was, as a matter of fact, when I tell you that I really don't know his age, I really mean that I don't know his age. I really mean it. I never asked him. I never looked in his passport. I never opened to this very day. I'm in this hotel, and there's my suitcase and the other suitcase, and I never opened to see what's in the drawers. I have no idea. It's a custom. And when I visited him, there was his desk with drawers, and I never opened them. I had no idea what was in them, and I never asked him unless he told me. And I think that it was part of that relationship that he liked with me, that there was discretion. You know, I was not a person that was there to take advantage of an older person who might have the purse to treat me to the theater or to dinners or that. No. I have the feeling that sadness came not because of his marriage, not for personal reasons. It was more for the experience of the war. he used to get profoundly sad. How he helped the tragedy of the Jews, because it was really, I mean, no matter whatever, anybody, we're alive and we have the right to be alive because we are here. And anybody that is forcibly removed, betrayed in his humanity, it's a very terrible thing. I think right now what happens to the Arabs is a terrible thing, and what happened to Jews is a terrible thing. What happens to anybody dispossessed is a terrible thing. We all have the right to be here because we're born, and all of that suffering, all of those families separated, and all the tragedy of the Holocaust, I think that really affected him terribly.
Did he talk about any of the things? I mean, there was this concentration camp, Bergen-Belsen. Did he talk about Belsen at all? Or?
He talked about those things, but I personally did not want to hear it. I was hear all of this photographs, and I remember saying, John, this is really terrible, but it's now over. It's gone. And he says, but this thing should never happen again. Remember, this thing should never happen again. And he said exactly what what I'm telling you right now. That why, we are alive. We have the right to be, to be alive. I mean, why be deprived of our lives, of our freedom?
How did you understand it when he died? Did you think? I mean, how did you hear about it?
I remember I was in. I had a friend from my country. His name was Landivar, was his last name, who had the problems, who had mental problems. He was not really quite retarded, but he was. He had these fears. I mean, he was one of those personalities that are very, very afraid of everything. And his mother brought him to the United States. They're wealthy, and he was treating him. And they were in New York, and it was about 7 o'clock in the evening, and the phone rang. I remember because it was in the evening, because I was doing my drawings at the room of this lady, Mrs. Kelly, my landlady, where I was staying at the time, right across from Columbia University. And the phone rang, and it was Mrs. Landivar, and he asked me, have you spoken with Dr. Thompson? I said, yes, recently. I said, something has happened. Call his office. And then I think that at that moment I called his office, and they told me Dr. Thompson has died. And I was extremely shocked at the time. I remember that I started sobbing. It was probably one of the first great shocks that I had. I learned at the time that something that had been told to me before and after, that there's the time when you said if or why I didn't, and I could have done that. You see. It was really very, very, very painful. Towards the end, we didn't talk that much. I was busy, and sometimes when I used to call him, he was a little bit remote with me. Maybe he also gotten very busy or something. We didn't see each other that much. But of course, this is like 7-8 years later from our first meeting.
Okay. And was an accident?
It was not known. Once we were in church down in the village near his apartment. This is years before his death, and he was kneeling, and then he went like this, and I said, what's happening? Tell me. I think it's his gallbladder. I don't know whether he was operating for the gallbladder. I cannot recall. But he was outwardly a very healthy man. His face looked a little bit weathered, not in the sense of a. His skin was fresh, but he had lines already. And his hair was really white. And but he looked healthy, rosy cheeked, not the face of a sick person that the skin turns yellowish or anything of the kind. And he was a sportsman. I mean, he was not really athletic in the sense of being athletic, but he was very healthy. I mean, he's good torso, good body. He was getting it. He had put on some weight, but he loved to swim, and he went to our convent in Fitch and bought this scuba diving because he had gone with somebody who recommended the Virgin Islands because of the waters, and he came back and told us, said, you wouldn't believe what you see down there. This fish shot was incredible, and I really had to do it. And then he bought this camera for underwater photography. It was a camera designed by Cousteau, and called the Calypso. No, just a moment. The boat was called the Calypso, and the camera was called the. I could find out for you.
Don't worry, I'll find it.
That model was later on. The model was bought by Nikon, and but it was designed originally by Cousteau, and he bought the gear and the tank, the mask, and everything. And he was very excited about going there. He told me, I'm going down there and doing underwater photography, which I thought this was very John. He didn't look young anymore, but he was starting something new. And I mean, it's very John. He's marvelous. First he had this one from Austin Healey, and then he had a Jaguar XKE, which is, I mean, the ultimate in stylish, and an elegant man, always very impeccable man. In the bathroom, I remember his things in order, his comb, his hairbrush. He used to brush it like this, all in order, in absolute perfect order. Then when I called Frank or Margaret, I said, it may have been a faulty equipment while trying to find out, or he may have had some kind of an attack while he was underwater. It does happen sometimes when you are diving, the compression or decompression, I don't know, it may do something to you, and that may happen. Then later on, Frank told me he's going to be buried there because he loved the Virgin Islands, and that's where he's buried apparently, right?